Once upon a time, in the ancient empire of Grace Mountain, there reigned a wise and noble emperor Two Swords. His empire flourished under his rule, blessed with peace, prosperity, and magic that flowed through its lands like the very lifeblood of the soil. The emperor had 4 children, but one sadly perished as life itself pierced his big heart. The other Rupert, who was always helping anyone out. But this story only emphasizes 2 siblings. Raul, his son, a gifted young wizard with a kind heart, and Moria, his daughter, a skilled sorceress whose ambition and desire for power knew no bounds. The people of Grace Mountain adored Raul for his wisdom and his gentle hand in all matters of magic. He had been tutored by the finest wizards in the land and was known for using his talents to heal, protect, and guide those in need. He and his brother Danielord were great local armorers with their nephew Daniel Thorne. Together they crafted the best and finest armor for the townspeople and surrounding area. Moria, on the other hand, was known for her sharp intellect, great cooking skills, but also for her insatiable thirst for power. She yearned to rule, believing she was the rightful heir to her father's throne, given her magical prowess. However, fate would not bend to Moria's will. When Emperor Two Swords, beloved by all, grew old, his hearing began to fail and his sight began to blur and could not hear or see after nightfall. Instead of using his servants to serve, he decided one fateful night to serve the needy himself. His aging began to wane. As it always did, he went out to help some peasants who were out hunting when their carriage broke down after striking a deer late in the night. They sent courier pigeons to ask the emperor to send aid, but he, like always, took matters into his own hands. Shortly after arriving to their aid, while he was backing his carriage to pull the broken one, an oncoming carriage, unbeknownst to the emperor, did not see him until it was too late. He tried to veer off the trail but unfortunately struck and instantly killed the emperor. The rider of the carriage, drunk off fairy brew, tried to evade, but his wagon wheels sank into the soil off the beaten path. The following days the empire awaited with bated breath to see who of the 3 would inherit the throne. Moria was certain that she, her father's favorite with cunning and magical abilities, would be chosen. But when the emperor passed on, it was Raul who was named the heir to the empire and its scrambled lands. The emperor's final decree bestowed upon him the lands, the wealth, and the crown. For the emperor saw in Raul the same wisdom and fairness that had made him a great ruler, and an even bigger heart to care for the empress that he sadly left behind. The news sent shock waves through Grace Mountains and through its valleys across the Carlithian forest and across the countless bogs. But none felt the sting of it more than Moria. Losing her husband years before and her sibling Danielord only added to the loss of the emperor. How dare they? How dare he? Moria seethed in the shadows of her chambers, as if Raul chose himself. Her heart burning with jealousy and fury fueled her rage. She had been passed over, cast aside in favor of her brother, who would now rule everything she had coveted. Raul, ever kind and gentle, had offered to share the riches and power of the empire with her. But to Moria, this was an insult. Her jealousy consumed her, turning her once bright magic dark. The more she fumed over her father's decision, the more it festered and the more bitter and vengeful she became. She could no longer see her brother as family, only as a true rival, a thief who had taken what should have been hers. The bond they had shared as children was now broken, shattered by jealousy, ambition, and undeserved envy. In the shadows, Moria began sorcering her powers to weave a new kind of magic, dark and twisted, drawn from the deepest, most malevolent forces of the land. She cast aside her title as a princess and began to transform herself into something far more feared. She would no longer be known as Moria the sorceress. She would consider herself a ruler of the dark arts, the very embodiment of evil. Her heart turned cold, and her once short hair lengthened with time. She became as black as the night. The warmth of her eyes dimmed until they gleamed with malevolent shimmers, like 2 orbs of smoldering coals. As Raul ascended to the throne, Moria's dark powers grew. She unleashed curses upon the empire, causing crops to wither and livestock to fall ill. Storms brewed unnaturally in the skies, and the once thriving land began to suffer under her wrath. Her hatred for Raul Eris became all-consuming, and she swore to bring about his downfall by any means necessary, and she would stop at nothing to make the lands hers. Raul Eris the prince, now the emperor and the most powerful wizard in the realm, knew that his sister's transformation into a bitter person was dangerous not only to him but to the entire empire. But he was wise and compassionate. He did not wish to destroy his sister. He still hoped, deep down, that she might turn away from the darkness that consumed her. He sent emissaries to reason with her, offering her silver and titles, trying to bridge the chasm that had grown between them, but Moria's heart was hardened, and she spurned every offer of peace. Instead, she retaliated by using her dark magic to summon beasts and spirits from the underworld to plague Raul Eris and his people. Forests once full of life became twisted with dead trees filled with dangerous creatures under her spell. Villages on the borders of her lands fell into ruin as Moria's influence spread like a creeping shadow. She also took her son Daniel Thorne, who always got along and helped Raul Eris in their armor-making shop, and began to take his great skills away to damage the craftsmanship, and slowly convinced him out of his empire and slowly turned him against his uncle. Raul Eris knew that the empire could not survive this endless assault. He had to act. But he also knew that a direct confrontation with Moria could tear the very fabric of the realm apart. He sought counsel from the ancient magical beings of the world, including the wise dragons and the elusive fairy queens. He tried to get the Carlithian godmother to mediate, but she was mostly on Moria's side. He sought the help of Orlinda, a sorceress with her all-seeing orb, as the orb revealed what would happen if she was not stopped. And through Orlinda's crystal ball he learned of a spell, a powerful enchantment that could contain Moria's dark magic and prevent it from spreading. However, it came with a cost. The spell would forever separate him and Moria, turning them into mortal enemies until the end of time. With a heavy heart, Raul Eris accepted this fate. He knew that peace could only be restored if Moria's influence was contained. On the eve of the longest night, Raul Eris climbed to the highest tower of his castle to cast the spell. The magic rippled through the land, surrounding Moria's darkened domain and creating an invisible barrier that her curses could not penetrate. The empire sighed in relief, for now, they were safe from her wrath. But the spell did more than just contain her magic. It severed the last remaining ties of sibling love between them. From that day forward, they became sworn enemies, destined to clash again and again. Moria's hatred only grew deeper as she realized what her brother had done. And he, though sorrowful, accepted that his sister was now lost to the darkness and another casualty of a darker war as he added her to the list of the dearly departed. The once close siblings were now the greatest of foes, Raul Eris, the wise wizard emperor who ruled with compassion, and Moria, the consummate witch whose every thought was bent on revenge. Their conflict would shape the fate of Grace Mountain for generations to come. And so, it was said that until the end of time, they would be locked in an eternal struggle, their powers equal but opposite. But as time progressed, Moria's mind, cunning and her light of wisdom, battled the shadows of envy forever flickering on the forest floor. The end of the emperor had brought about not just the rise of a new ruler, but the creation of the beginning of a terrible rivalry, one that would be remembered throughout the ages of the emperor's fall.